So following on from our basic knots, we're doing joining knots. So we've done a reef knot, which is a joining knot. A reef knot is generally only useful if the bits of string you're using are the same size. So if I tried to tie a reef knot where the bits of string are different diameters, different thicknesses, then it can go a bit wrong. So if they're both the same size and those bites can hold on to each other well enough, then all good. But if they're not, then things can go a little bit wrong. So to alleviate that, we can use something called a sheet bend. And if you don't know knots, then if you ever see a bend in a name of a knot, then it means this knot is intended to join things together, join ropes to other ropes. So our green bit here is being a surrogate for a rope that could be a huge big ship rope or whatever, could be any size you want, right, as long as you can put a bend in it. And what we're doing, we're putting just a bite in that, which is just a bend that doesn't cross. So if you put down that, if you go that way and cross the loop, that's a crossing loop. It's not a bite, right? So a bite is where it just loops like that, and the two ends of the loop leave and they're parallel and not crossing. Right. So this particular thing, the bite that you put in, this could be halfway up a sail or a ship or whatever, it doesn't matter. Once we've just put that bend in the bottom of it, we're not going to touch, well, I'm going to touch it because I'm going to hold on to it while I'm tying a knot, but this stays static. We're not using it at all, other than to wrap this knot down. So effectively, like the reef knot was two bites clinging onto each other, what we've got in a sheet bend is a bite that is static, doesn't move. That's the bit that we don't even get a hold of the other end of or anything like that. We'll just put a bend in it. Clung to, gripped, whatever, by a crossing loop. You'll see that when we tie it. So to tie the sheet bend, we come up through the middle of the bite, then we go around the back of the bite like that. So we've gone up and then around here, and then you see this loop here that we've got in our orange bit here. So when we go round, what we're going to do is come across the face of the bite. We're going to cross the face of the bite and then underneath that loop. So cross the face of the bite. I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. So we've gone up around the back of the bite there, and then across the face of the bite to go back underneath. The orange bit goes back underneath, and that's our bite in the green, and you can see our crossing loop in the orange, right? So a bite in the green, and we're just forming a crossing loop in the orange that is going to grip onto the bite when we tighten all this up. So there's our crossing loop that we've just put into the orange thing. Okay, so tighten all of that up. And the reason why this is good is because you can see where bites don't grip onto themselves, there's no crossing of themselves in order to be able to hold on or tighten or anything like that. Whereas in the orange, what we've got is not only have we got the bite of the green that's, you know, when it's pulled tight and it's going through, that bite is gripping onto this part of the orange bit. Not only that, but we've also got the crossing loop formed, or the cross of the loop formed by the orange bit there, that is also going to grip on. So that sheet bend is stronger than a reef knot and is also good for tying ropes of different sizes together. If you're going to do that, tie different ropes together, then the thicker rope should form the bite, and the thinner rope should form the crossing loop. But it doesn't slip, and it's pretty well done. So a variant, just to add a little bit more strength to it, is a double sheet bend. We do exactly the same, come up through the bite, and we go round the back, and before we go back across the top, if you remember we go back across the top of the bite there, before we do that we are going to go around the back of the bite again. So we've got 2 loops going through. Now we are going to go across and across the bite and underneath to finish off the crossing loop. So we've got a crossing loop, but this time we've got an extra turn at the top to grip onto the other sections of the bite. And when we tighten that up, you can see that there's our crossing loop, but now it's got this little collar here, which adds a bit more grip onto it. And you know, that's a double sheet bend. If you want to do a triple sheet bend or a quadruple sheet bend, they're exactly the same. It's just the number of times you go around the parallel ends of the bite before you come across the top of the bite to form your crossing loop. What you have to watch when you're tying knots, every single bend and whatever that you got into it is a potential weak point that you're putting into the rope. So even though a double sheet bend, a triple sheet bend, quadruple sheet bend, they're forming progressively stronger knots, what you may be doing by adding those additional turns in is making a progressively weaker rope. So just be mindful of the materials you're using to tie your knots, and that you might be tying strong knots but ultimately coming up with a weak combination of knot and rope in the end, which might not be what you want. That's a sheet bend. It's another basic, simple, easy knot that is really useful.